Hi viewers, it's Tuesday night. This is Cara. She's your host for the evening.
It was my guest star, Reverend Rose. Good job. She knows my greeting.
No problem. I watch it.
Hi viewers, it's Cara. I'm your host for Tuesdays on the Pagan Perspective, and this week's theme is reincarnation. And I have a special guest with me today. I'm overly animated because it's my mom. This is Reverend Rose, who you may recognize as my mother. First things first, do you believe in reincarnation?
Yeah, I do.
Easy answer. Yeah, I do. Me too.
Well, I never used to. Oh, that was because I was brought up Catholic. So I never used to because they taught us not to. It was evil. You know, as I started my walk and I got to be a minister and non-denominational, spiritualist, eclectic, whatever you want to call me, type of way, I started to see things in a different light and figured, you know, there's got to be something. We've got to come back because if we don't come back, how's the full circle of life continue to go?
So you're not pagan?
No.
No.
I don't think.
Well, I get asked that question a lot because my mom believes a lot of what I believe and is okay with my beliefs and just has a lot of the same ideas, but she considers herself Christian. Someone else also thought she was a Unitarian Universalist, but she didn't even know what that was before I brought it up. So she was like, what's a UU? Is that like a yo-yo? And I was like, yeah, definitely.
I'll tell you what I was always told by my father, by the way, who was also Catholic but had more of a, he should have been a Universalist, really, he should have been. He always taught me that when you die, float around up there for a while, and then you come back as something else. You never know what you're going to come back at. But the old saying is, it's a wives' tale, I'm sure. Okay, so don't everybody panic. But if it's not, I know what I want to come back as.
Okay.
They always say that you come back as what you hated the most in life. So in that case, I hate rich, beautiful women.
Oh, that's a good plan.
So that's what I'm coming back as.
Partially so that you can understand life from their point of view and maybe not hate them as much. Not that you would know your previous life, but also so that you can experience the same kind of hatred that people like you have for people like them now. So
I really don't hate them. I just
like,
kind of like to pick on them a whole lot.
It's like, oh, I wish I could be you.
Deja vu, to me, is somewhat of a part of reincarnation because there's so many times where you'll go someplace and you'll take a look around and go, gosh, I was here before. And you never were, but were you? To me, that's part of reincarnation, is the feeling that you've been somewhere before, and in a past life you probably have been in that place before. It may not have looked exactly the way it did. You may not have been the person you were. The other part of it is the way you act, the way you feel about certain things. Like, for instance, I'm one of those that keeps telling my kids when they're grown and gone, I'm going to retire myself into this cabin in the bayou somewhere in the Amazon and live in the jungle. And, you know,
is it the bayou, the Amazon, or the jungle?
Well, one of those places. You know, I love the woodsy. I love the outdoors. I love the Native American things. I love that. It reflects in my living room decor. It reflects in everything around me. I grow herbs. I grow plants. I use aloe on my burns. You know, I make chamomile tea from chamomile I've grown. I just a few years back decided I was going to have one of those past life readings done by a gentleman that's using the Edgar Cayce form of past life readings. Edgar Cayce's reincarnation of biblical characters. Anyway, I had one of those done, and as it turns out, in my past life, I did live in the Amazon at one point. I lived in the rainforest at one point. I lived in a hut, and I was a spiritual leader for the youth in the Aztec Indian tribe.
And you've had dreams about that too.
And I have had several dreams, and they call them visions, vision quest. It was during a meditation that I had this so-called dream.
Oh, right. I thought it was a dream.
Yeah,
dream.
no. It was definitely a vision quest. And this was before I had the past life reading done. I saw myself standing in the middle of this tribe of Indian people. On either side of me were children, and we were all holding hands, and I was in a Native American dress with the fringes, you know, made out of the buckskin. It was
so
not a
white,
but a light, yeah. Yeah, kind of like what I wear now. And I was walking with all these children. Afterwards, when I had the past life reading done, found out that I was a spiritual leader for the youth in my past life. So yeah, it made a firm believer out of me in reincarnation because of the way I am today does reflect all of that.
I never really say what your religion is. If they ask, I say no. She says she's Christian. She's a Universal Life Church minister, not, whatever. I think just based on your beliefs, you don't sound like a Christian because most Christians don't do all the things you do, but it's your life, your present life combining with things that you have believed all the way through your past lives. And I've never had a past life reading or anything done. I've never purposely done a vision quest, things like that. So that's why I asked Mom to be here, because I know she has a little bit more, Reverend Rose, sorry, to be here. She has a little bit more experience on that. And we do have this book. Neither of us have read it yet, though, because we're so busy. I haven't even flipped through it. But I just remember thinking it was interesting when we got it, and I don't remember when we got it, but because it's called The Reincarnation of Biblical Characters, and I just knew that in general Christianity, or maybe it's just Catholicism, I'm not sure, taught us that reincarnation didn't happen, basically. This book is written or edited, put together by, I guess written by Kevin J. Deshi. I don't know, I'll spell it somewhere. But it's using the Edgar Cayce method. It was found out that people's past lives put them in the Bible. And so they did a whole collection on biblical characters and their past lives and what their other lives had been since the Bible up into the time of the reading. We haven't read it yet, but if you have, comment, tell me what you thought about it, make a video response, or if you haven't yet, maybe we'll get there. Okay, scene change because it got really dark outside, so I know that last part of the video I'm gonna lighten it so hopefully you can still see us, but it got really dark. Mom wanted me to read this part in the introduction of the book that sort of explains what Edgar Cayce's view on reincarnation is, if you haven't really heard much about him. From Cayce's perspective, each of us goes through a series of lifetimes for the express purpose of soul growth and development. In that process, the soul is given opportunities and experiences which will best enable the individual to fulfill the purpose for which she or he incarnated. In the language of the readings, the individual is given whatever conditions are needed, quote, to meet the needs of that to make the entity at oneness with the creative energy, end quote. It's kind of like what Kyle said in his video earlier today, that there is some overall purpose that we need to learn, and if we don't learn that in one lifetime, go to whatever kind of in-between ground there is before you're reincarnated into your next life, and then you keep learning lessons that you need to pick up through all these lives, because sometimes it's just impossible to learn all of the lessons that you need to learn in your overall lifetime in one individual lifetime. T.S. Gore actually sent us a message about parallel lives. You were born in, let's say 1800, just to pick an easy number, and say you died in 1880, and then you were reincarnated and born in 1845, and then died somewhere in the 1900s. What would happen if your first life and the second life met somewhere around 1875? You know, would you recognize your previous life, or would the universe keep it so that you would never meet your other self? Or is that a possibility? Could you ever meet a parallel life?
I think it's a possibility.
I think it's a possibility.
I also think that's part of where deja vu comes in.
I've never heard of specific instances of this. Like, when he said it, I remember hearing about that kind of thing, but I had never heard of instances where it's happened. So if you know of anywhere it's happened, comment that, make a video response, because I think that's really especially interesting.
I'm not so sure that that's not what happened with me and Mimi.
Yeah, right.
First time we walked in the store and she said, "Oh, my sister's here." I'd never seen this woman before in my life, but she definitely is Native American. And she goes, "Oh, you're not my sister." And then she just looked at me and she went, "Or are you?" And
it's like when people say things like, "Oh, I should have been born in this decade," I always just say, "Well, maybe you were."
Right.
You know, because it's definitely possible. Or people say, "What decade do you think you should have been born in?" And I always make it way too serious by saying, whatever it is, I probably was there. If you have a special interest in something, or like you're very drawn to something that you never could have experienced in this lifetime, maybe it's because you were there.
Another thing, just really quick, I want to touch on is in this book, part of why people reincarnate also is due to sudden death, before their time type of death. He makes mention in this book of some people that did not complete what they were supposed to complete. Thus, they reincarnate into something else to come back to complete their life the way it should have been completed to begin with.
But some people's spirits solve that by becoming a ghost. If it's something that has to be completed within that lifetime, they might end up stuck on that plane as a spirit and then move on. We're going to end this video because I'm going to do another video real quick for my personal channel, sort of talking to Mom a bit about her and things that people have asked me about her. and the Etsy shop, which there will be a link in the video in a couple hours. Not in this one. Go to my personal channel. Subscribe if you haven't.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. I'll see you next week. She won't see you. Blessed be.
Blessed be.
Namaste.
Namaste.